This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Hey, everybody. The official Big Bang Theory podcast is back, covering seasons 3 and 4 of the show. Each week, host Jessica Radloff speaks with crew and cast members like Kunal Nair, Mayim Bialik, and Kevin Sussman. Hear about the Easter eggs you may have missed, behind-the-scenes stories, and how certain real-life relationships shaped some of the most memorable storylines. Watch the official Big Bang Theory podcast on HBO Max or wherever you get your podcasts. We've all tumbled down an internet rabbit hole trying to self-diagnose, and it leaves us more anxious than informed. Our feeds are full of wellness trends, but how do we know what's real, what's exaggerated, and what's just wrong? Health versus Hype from the American Medical Association breaks it all down. Emmy-nominated science communicator Trace Dominguez talks to doctors, influencers, and real people trying these trends, not to cancel them, but to understand them. Because when it comes to your health, who you listen to matters. So listen to Health versus Hype wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Stuff You Should Know, a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Josh, and there's Chuck, and this is Stuff You Should Know. The Fairy Tale King edition, I guess.
Yeah, the one and only.
It's the best I could come up with.
I love stories of allegedly mad kings.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken before about The Madness of King George, the great film.
Sure.
And I'm surprised no one's done a movie about this character.
I am too, as a matter of fact, because even if he's not that well known, and he's pretty well known,
yeah,
his castle is certainly extraordinarily well known.
Sure. Which one?
Well, yeah, he made 3 castles, as we'll see, but the one that really takes the cake is Neuschwanstein, which means New Swan Stone.
Do you want to know the German pronunciation?
I just gave it.
Neuschwanstein.
That's what I said.
Oh, okay, great.
Is it really?
Yeah, for EI, it's always the second letter in German.
Neusch.
And then Neu it's not new, it's Neu.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I'll just call it New Swanstone Castle then from now on.
Yeah, 'cause that's what it means, right?
All right, let me try my hand at this.
Okay.
Ludwig II, and we're saying the W like a V, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Ludwig II, known as the Fairy Tale King. Mm-hmm. In German, Fairy Tale King is der Markenkönig.
Yeah, you just got to work on your umlauts.
I thought I nailed it. Okay, what is that one then?
I think that would be Märchenkönig.
Okay. Well, at any rate, I love these words. I just can't pronounce them at all.
Hey, I'm going on German I learned in 1988 and 89. And
but you still
a little
got
bit in
it,
91
buddy.
and 92. I don't know if I do or not.
So as we'll see, even if you haven't heard of Ludwig, he is a really appealing character in history. Yeah. He was a real life character, but I think he kind of taps into this universal desire that everybody has every once in a while, or some people have more than others, but we all face times and circumstances and consequences that make us just want to turn away from the world, turn inward into like a fantasy world of our own making where we can be happy. And most of us don't go actually do that. Ludwig II did just that because he had the opportunity and he had the means to do it. And I think in that sense, he's appealing in a lot of ways. Plus, he's a deeply tragic, romantic figure as well.
Yeah. As they say, it's good to be the king, right?
Sure.
In his case, for a little while at least. Well, actually for a long while. He had a nice run.
He did, 20-something years.
But let's set up the stage of kind of what was going on when he came about in southeastern Germany, what was known as Bavaria. And they still call that area Bavaria. Did you like that?
It did.
But back then it was just Bavaria. It had its own, it was independent. And it had its own taxes and it had its own constitution. But it was surrounded by just a lot of upheaval in Europe at the time.
Right.
And when he was born to Crown Prince Ludwig II, he was born in 1845. I'm sorry, that was his name. He was born to King Maximilian II.
Right.
And Marie of Prussia had a brother named Otto, who suffered from mental illness, looked like probably schizophrenia. And his aunt, Princess Alexandra, also suffered from some sort of mental illness because she believed, one of the things she believed, that she had swallowed a piano made of glass when she was a kid, and she was protecting it. And if she moved the wrong way, it could shatter. And the reason we bring those two cases up is because Ludwig's own mental capabilities would be questioned later in life. And so you obviously look to the family a lot of times and say, hey, he also had this in his bloodline.
Yeah. I had an uncle who thought he was St. Jerome.
Right.
So Ludwig was born into, like you said, this really strange time or time of turmoil geopolitically. And like you said, Bavaria was an independent state. It was a kingdom. And it was one of the last kingdoms like in the area. Things were moving more toward more of a nation state, more of less monarchy, more constitution kind of thing, right? Yeah. And Germany was very much on the brink of basically being brought together into the modern Germany that we think of it now. This happened when Ludwig was, I think, 18 or 19 or 20 years old, basically.
I think he rose to the throne at 18.
Okay.
One thing we should set up, though, just, as far as his palace that he would later go on to build that he's famous for, he grew up in these kinds of palaces, obviously, as royalty in Bavaria at the time. The place where he was mainly raised was called Hohenschwangau Castle, even though he was born in Nymphenburg Palace. But both of these places, if you're looking at, quality castles, they were both pretty amazing. Yeah. And growing up in these places, little Ludwig was like, this established his aesthetic of what he thought was amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, and there's a quote from his mom that said that as a child, he enjoyed dressing up, took pleasure in play acting, loved pictures, and liked making presents of his property, money, and other possessions.
Does that mean like giving it away?
Yeah, exactly. Like, here, I want you to have this.
That's nice.
That's a good kid, right? Not exactly like king type behavior, and as we'll see, he basically set the stage for himself, or set the tempo for himself from a very early age, it turns out. So I think, like you said, he was 18 when his father died, and he ascended to the throne. He became king of Bavaria in 1864, and he felt totally unprepared for it.
Yeah, he was not excited about it like a lot of, kind of boy kings were. He wasn't very well schooled, seems very sheltered, didn't travel abroad really, never wanted anything to do with, kinging or anything like that. Kind of throughout his life, it seems like. And he was a total pacifist at a time where there was a lot of warring going on. He said it corrupts people's morals, makes them unable to entertain grand noble ideals, dulls them for spiritual enjoyment. So he was a pacifist. Yeah,
he was also very much opposed to hunting, and he loved nature, right?
I love this guy.
So he was apprehensive. He did have a really good education. He just felt like he didn't have enough of it to qualify as a ruler of a kingdom. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Sorry, king. But when he came to power within just a couple of years, despite his pacifist leanings, Bavaria was forced into 2 different wars. And as a result of that, the geopolitical map changed dramatically.
Yeah, for sure. They were allied with Australia because of royal bloodlines.
You said Australia.
Did I? Really?
Yeah.
All right.
So remove the L. And there's a couple, I think another vowel or so that needs to be taken.
Another A. Clearly meant Austria. They were allied with Austria. Who knows what he thought about Australia? No one ever asked, as far as I know.
Right.
And so when Prussia came knocking on the door for the 7 Weeks' War, that he was sort of forced to fight with Austria. And then they got their butts whipped pretty good. And then Bavaria was part of, or at least under the thumb of Prussia to the north. And then when the Franco-Prussian War started, then they had to fight with Prussia.
Yeah, and then after the Franco-Prussian War, the Prussians came out on top. And at that point, they're like, all right, you know what? We're just going to take over all of Germany. And they established the First Reich, the German Empire, that collected all these separate little kingdoms, including Bavaria, and put them under the rule of Prussia. But rather than being Prussia, the whole group, the whole collection that was now combined was Germany, as we recognize it today. Although a little more, because there's a bunch of Poland that was also part of Prussia that would be included in that map of Germany. But that was an enormous, huge change. And for Ludwig II personally, it meant that he had no power any longer. He was a ceremonial figurehead, and geopolitically speaking, he really was not very significant at all.
Yeah, so I imagine, from everything I know about poor little Ludwig, this probably wasn't the worst thing in the world, because all of a sudden he was forced into a figurehead sort of role.
Right.
And I get the idea that was probably ideal for him. Like he didn't want to govern. It seems like he didn't mind doing the day-to-day bureaucracy of the job.
Yes.
And signing the things he needed to sign and allocating the things he needed to allocate. But he was not interested in being king. And so all of a sudden, sort of under this new, sort of protection in a way as being part of the German Empire, and only having figurehead duties, he was free to be a fanciful boy king.
Yeah. And to add a little nuance, he was totally fine with being king, but he wanted to be like an absolute monarch, like God's divine representative on earth, like the kings of the centuries before were considered. But that wasn't happening, even if Prussia wasn't running the show, because by that time, Bavaria had become a constitutional monarchy. So even before the German Empire was founded, he wasn't nearly as powerful a king as he would have liked to have been. So yeah, that combined with his pacifism, combined with his proneness to fantasy, he was like, yes, this is my chance. I'll see y'all later. I'm going to go over here into this little fantasy world, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, he got to basically pretend that he was the king that he wasn't.
Yes. Yeah, well put.
And he was a romanticist. He was very much into romanticism. That's something that had already come and gone. But just like so many teenagers are obsessed with the generations before them, he loved the literature and the art of the movement. Obviously, Romanticism was all about emotion and art and vast imagination and history. And so all of this sort of wrapped up in this idea that he was like, all right, well, I'm going to pretend that like I'm Louis XIV, and basically sit around all day and fantasize.
Right. And then also, really importantly, one part of Romanticism, the architectural part of it, is called historicism.
Yeah.
And it's basically a nostalgic return to past architectural styles, but rather than going for historical accuracy, you go for idealization or improvement. So it ends up being like this fantasy version of what used to be.
Yeah, more gilded things.
Exactly. That totally jibed with how Ludwig liked to live and think.
Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's.
Boy, this one's been densely packed so far.
Yeah, there was a lot of geopolitics, a lot of architecture, historic movements. What else?
Yeah, that's about it.
Oh, okay.
Pronunciation.
Yeah, don't forget that.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, we're here to talk to you about Wayfair, who believes that spaces should be functional, they should be comfortable, they should be well-designed, and they can be well-designed by you with their help.
Your updated space should feel more comfortable, inviting, and practical for everyday use. And we're talking about outdoor seating. We're talking about grills. We're talking about major appliances. If you need storage solutions, Wayfair can help you out. Patio lighting, rugs, decor. It is your one-stop shop for home.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting nice out, so it's time to think about living outdoors for the next few months. And Wayfair knows that outdoor furniture, it's heavy, it's intimidating to assemble. So Wayfair has stepped in and said, we're going to handle the hard part so you don't have to.
That's right. You can shop Wayfair Verified, your shortcut to the good stuff. And that means their team of product specialists are going to vet everything by hand using a 10-point inspection, testing things like, quality materials, functionality, and features, and even how long it takes to build that piece of furniture. And the overall experience save time, reduce hassle, and improved convenience.
Patio season is here, and these deals won't last. So head to wayfair.com right now to get your outdoor space ready for way less. That's WAYFAIR.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hey, everybody. When you're at work, you never know when you're going to get interrupted, like when an office fire drill happens right in the middle of your presentation, or maybe construction is going on just outside your window. But with the Dell Pro laptop powered by Intel Core Ultra with vPro, no matter how many interruptions you have, your laptop won't be one of them.
Yeah, with the battery that's optimized for the way you work and built-in intelligence that quiets distractions the moment you're trying to focus, your tech won't slow you down, even when you're getting bounced from an office you forgot to reserve. The Dell Pro, built for those who stay in the flow. Find technology built the way you work at Dell.com/Dell-Pro. Built for you.
Everyone knows winter is the real mess maker. You don't need WeatherTech floor liners for summer unless you hit the beach and half the beach ends up back in your car, or the campsite dirt ends up in your trunk. Then you'd want a cargo liner, or a road trip goes sideways, lemonade spills, ketchup goes rogue, ice cream drips. Yeah, you'd be pretty happy about those WeatherTech seat protectors. So just to be clear, as the mud you're inevitably going to step in this summer, you don't need WeatherTech unless you plan on doing summer. Visit WeatherTech.com today. All right, so welcome to Act 2. This is where we talk about the private life of Ludwig, and I love how Livia put it in this section title.
No, that was me.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounded a little bit like Livia, but now I see Josh all over it.
Okay.
Was Ludwig gay? Yes. Yes, he was. And that's the deal. Ludwig was a gay man, a gay king. He was sort of arranged to be married to his 22-year-old cousin, Elsa, who was a duchess in not Australia, but in Austria. And not surprisingly, he did not go through with that wedding. He blamed it on the father-in-law. And that was just the deal. He bestied up with Elsa's sister, Empress Elizabeth, and they were peas in a pod.
Yeah, they both had a disdain for war and violence. They both loved classical literature. They both liked their solitude. And so much so that Ludwig, when he had his birthday parties, most of the people who were ever invited were the people who already worked for him, like his attendants and servants. They would dress up and come to the parties as guests. That's how much of a loner he was, and he liked it that way. And he was also not exactly quiet about his sexual orientation. Which is really something at the time. I mean, we're talking about the late 19th century in Bavaria. This is the king, and he's not exactly making it a huge secret. And in fact, while he was alive, it was like a very open secret that Ludwig enjoyed the company of men, as they would have put it back then.
Yeah, they when you were listing out the shared loves that he and Empress Elizabeth had, you left one out though. They both love Sean Cassidy.
Sean Cassidy, what was his one hit? He just had the one, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I remember though, we were all in love with him.
Yeah, he had that great feathered hair.
Me, Ludwig, all of us.
Sure.
So, like you said, his relationships were it was sort of like one of those open secrets. When he had fixers, he was the king. So when something happened, people would clean up after him. I think there were men in the stables that he was very fond of and perhaps had, physical relationships with. One man named Richard Hornig, who would eventually be his private secretary. And there was also a groom named Karl Hesselschwert, who was sort of his traveling valet and apparently wingman, because would help him find sexual partners.
Right.
But anytime something like this would happen, and it got to, sort of the rumors became widespread, like people would just, and I was about to say people would disappear. They wouldn't like have them snuffed out or anything, but
right.
People would be relocated with other jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we know all this because he wrote a lot about this in his diary entries. And from what I gleaned from it, he would basically pull out all the stops for his dates. Like there'd be champagne and candles and gifts and stuff like that.
Bottle service?
Yeah, basically.
You got to do it.
Yeah. But also in his diary, very sadly, he was a devout, very pious Catholic. Yeah. So he had a lot of inner turmoil, but that he was conflicted between his religious beliefs and his sexual orientation. And so in that sense, that's like just one leg of the stool that make him a tragic figure.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that we aren't as clear about as far as relationship goes is his relationship to composer Richard Wagner. He was a big fan of Wagner since he was a little kid. And once he became king and had means, he found Wagner sort of on hard times financially and was able to basically say like, hey, I love your music. You're not doing too well, so why don't you let me financially support you?
Yeah.
And you'll kind of just be like my private entertainer. I mean, you can still go on and make your great compositions, but you can also do these private operas and private concerts here in the court. And it was a mutually beneficial relationship for both of them.
Yeah, he was considered, Ludwig was considered one of the great patrons of the arts of the 19th century. And he actually made Munich, which was the capital of Bavaria, essentially the music capital of Europe during the time.
Yeah.
And to give you an idea of like what people who were into Romanticism, what they talked like in their letters back then.
Yeah.
There's a really great quote about Wagner that he wrote to, I think, his mistress, who would eventually become his wife, Cosima. He said, "He is unfortunately so beautiful and wise, soulful and lordly, that I fear his life must fade away like a divine dream in this base world."
That's great.
Yeah. So this is what he's writing to his wife about this new patron he has. And Wagner was into women. He had a long-standing affair with the woman, like I said, who would become his wife. But if you read some of their letters, and even taking into account that people expressed friendship much differently than they do today.
Yeah.
Between men especially, even taking that into account, like the flowery language they would use and just the desperation they would have at being apart, it's still not 100% clear what all went down between Wagner and Ludwig when it was just the two of them hanging out in a castle.
Yeah, for sure. There was one quote that Wagner wrote, I think, to Ludwig, right? After they had been, in each other's company, he wrote this: "How can I find words to describe you, the magic of this hour? I am in your angelic arms. We are near to one another."
Mm-hmm.
So, that reads as, possibly something happening there. And I'm certainly no expert, but was it this you or Olivia that found the LGBTQ history writer?
Olivia found that guy.
Yeah, it's a guy named Richter Norton wrote that their relationship was almost certainly physical, though not necessarily genital.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it seems like if that's correct, or if that, he's it's a supposition, but if that's correct, then it may be the case of a young, wealthy patron who is around his idol, and the idol maybe, giving the patron just some extra time and affection to stay in the good graces and to stay funded. Maybe like who knows what happened behind closed doors, but that's at least Richter Norton's take.
Yeah. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what happened. I think the point is that Ludwig was a gay icon before there were such things as gay icons, and he still is today.
It's just palace intrigue, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So from the moment Wagner showed up or was invited to court through Ludwig's death, he was supported by Ludwig financially, and there's it's pretty widely agreed that had Ludwig not supported Wagner, he probably would not have been able to create a lot of the compositions that he came up with.
Yeah, for sure.
So in that sense, Ludwig II gave the world a lot of Wagner's later work. And if you're familiar with Wagner and his Germanic nationalism, he was also an anti-Semite. And one of the cool things about Ludwig is he objected to his friend's anti-Semitism. He didn't just turn a blind eye to it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was a great guy. The more I find out about him, the more I just love him.
Totally. So the other thing that he was really into, like we kind of mentioned earlier, was architecture, especially Romanticist stuff, sort of Byzantine influences and Roman kind of stuff.
Right.
Byzantine is Roman, I guess. But he loved to build things. He loved to take on these big projects. Even though he did not hunt and was against it, he built a lavish hunting retreat. He built these 3 palaces that you mentioned earlier. And the UNESCO World Heritage Sites had this to say of the palaces. The monarch created artificial alternative worlds in which he could immerse himself in far distant places and past eras. Their main function was to simulate literary and ideal fantasy worlds as realistically as possible using architecture, art, and technology in order to produce an all-encompassing experience, a perfect illusion.
Yeah.
That says it all.
I left it out of this quote, but it also goes on to say he was also a really big fan of Australia.
Right.
So they said something, UNESCO said something, they used the word technology. And that was part of that historicism, that you took something that you loved about the past, but you improved it, you made it better. And part of that was using modern technology. And Ludwig was an eager, enthusiastic early adopter of new technology, in particular electricity. And he was using this stuff in the 1870s. It's worth pointing out, Edison did not invent the light bulb, but he did produce the first best incandescent light bulb. That wasn't until 1880. Ludwig was already using light bulbs and electricity in the decade before that.
Yeah, and using them as every lovely outdoor cafe does with like string lights. Mm-hmm. He had a artificial cave, and this is at Linderhof Castle.
Right.
He had an artificial cave in a lake which had these colored lights everywhere. He eventually would build a recreation of Versailles on a lake island. Mm-hmm. I believe it's called, this is a tough one. Heron Shimisi Palace. But that was
can't be it.
What do you think it is?
I don't know, but that sounds like a town along the Mississippi. It didn't sound German at all.
Well, it doesn't look German. I don't think it is German.
I think it is.
Heron Himsi? I don't know. How would you say it?
I think I liked what you just said. We're just going to stick with that. I'm not attempting it. I'm just making fun. That's all.
Oh, okay. Nice work.
Thanks.
That was never finished, but they did finish some sections. But his most famous, the one that we're going to kind of focus on, is you want to try it again, tough guy?
New Swanstone.
Neuschwanstein Castle,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, you got to look this thing up. It's unbelievable.
I say we take a break and then come back and talk about Neuschwanstein.
Steen.
Man.
Stein. No, it is Stein. You're right.
Oh, now you're just confusing me.
We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. When you're at work, you never know when you're going to get interrupted, like when an office fire drill happens right in the middle of your presentation, or maybe construction is going on just outside your window. But with the Dell Pro laptop powered by Intel Core Ultra with vPro, no matter how many interruptions you have, your laptop won't be one of them.
Yeah, with the battery that's optimized for the way you work and built-in intelligence that quiets distractions the moment you're trying to focus, your tech won't slow you down, even when you're getting bounced from an office you forgot to reserve. The Dell Pro, built for those who stay in the flow. Find technology built the way you work at Dell.com/Dell-Pro. Built for you.
Everyone knows winter is the real mess maker. You don't need WeatherTech floor liners for summer unless you hit the beach and half the beach ends up back in your car, or the campsite dirt ends up in your trunk. Then you'd want a cargo liner, or a road trip goes sideways, lemonade spills, ketchup goes rogue, ice cream drips. Yeah, you'd be pretty happy about those WeatherTech seat protectors. So just to be clear, as the mud you're inevitably going to step in this summer, you don't need WeatherTech unless you plan on doing summer. Visit WeatherTech.com today. Our listeners love puzzles, paradoxes, and hidden patterns almost as much as we do. On TikTok, those fascinations come to life. People are breaking down physics, exploring geology, and explaining why the world works the way it does. You'll see impressive experiments, explanations that finally make sense, and connections you didn't expect. It's like having a lab, a lecture hall, and science museum in your pocket. TikTok is where wonder is shared, where curiosity turns into discovery, and where millions learn something new every day.
Okay, everybody. So we talked about a couple of other castles, but Neuschwanstein is the one that is most associated with Ludwig II. The first one, Linderhof, was considered this technological amusement park. The other one that you said was like a recreation of Versailles. Neuschwanstein was the most magical looking recreation of what's called Romanesque architecture that you would just think of essentially as like, it's just like Sleeping Beauty's castle at Disney World and Disneyland. So much so that he must have been inspired by that.
Are we putting a pin in that or talking about that?
We can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, supposedly Walt Disney visited that castle with his wife in the 1950s. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the main castle there in Disney World, and I guess Disneyland has one too, right? I've never been there.
Yeah.
It looks a heck of a lot like Neuschwanstein.
Yeah. And I think it is 100% certain that he modeled it after that. And if you see it, like, even if it wasn't 100% certain, you'd be like, yeah, he totally modeled it after that. It looks like a fairy tale castle. If you are not driving right now and you're just sitting around, you have your phone or your computer, or, a full set of
Sketch
encyclopedias, or at least the ends, look up a picture of Neuschwanstein. It is amazing, breathtaking. It's the definition of the word breathtaking.
Yeah, it is gorgeous. It sits on a top of a mountain, and like these are the mountains that have those, it looks like the castle in Frozen. Like it sits on a tiny little peak, not for defense, but he loved the view there. If you look out from the castle, you have the beautiful mountain ranges. You have it's a very small lake, but the Schwansee is right there. You can actually see the two castles from the video I saw online. Was a guy standing on the deck, or not the decking, but whatever you would call the outdoor areas.
The dance floor?
Hey, come out to the deck. Or a patio.
The hardscape?
It's got to be something more grand than those words for what those were. But anyway, what we would call like the outdoor patio of Hohenschwangau. And right there in the background, you can see Neuschwanstein. They're only about a mile from each other. I'm guessing as the crow flies. But it's just a gorgeous scene.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, whether it's summer, fall, winter in particular, with snow on it.
Ooh, magical.
It's gorgeous. And like we said, Ludwig was a early adopter of technology. One of the things that he used, or his construction people had to use, was steam-powered cranes. Yeah. Because this was not an easy place to build. And it was a pretty massive castle made of very heavy brick and stone. And in addition to that, he had things like an elevator. Yeah. In fact, he had an elevator table. So remember, we said that he enjoyed his solitude? Yes. In particular, he appreciated dining alone. He didn't even want servants around serving him. So what he would do is sit at the table in his dining room, and the table would lower down, I think 3 stories to the kitchen. The table would be set, all the food would be put on it, and then it would be raised back up for him to dine. That's how remote he wanted to be from people when he didn't want to be around people.
So I don't quite follow that, actually.
Imagine it's like a dumbwaiter, but the whole table is the dumbwaiter.
Yeah, but he would be sitting at it when it was doing this?
Well, no. So he would stay seated up in the dining room, and the table would go down to the kitchen, and then the table would come back up all set and resplendent with a feast, and then he'd dig in.
That makes sense. I thought you meant he wrote it down. They set the table with the food, and then he wrote it back up. Right. And I was like, that doesn't, I mean, that's a lot of fun, but that doesn't prevent him from seeing anybody.
No, exactly.
I got you. Whee! Dinner time. Right. So the throne room is pretty impressive. You can, see pictures and videos of all this stuff, like full tours online. Mm-hmm. That was where the Byzantine influence really came in. It has a 13-foot tall chandelier. Never had a throne in it. But, this stuff is as over the top as it gets when you look at pictures and videos. It's really, it's not my style, obviously, and I've never, castles are kind of fun. I've toured a couple. Mm-hmm. None of it aesthetically is like, ooh, that's beautiful to me. Right. But the ornate qualities of it I can appreciate.
Yeah, For sure. And I think photos don't do it justice either, especially like interior photos of these rooms. They all just seem garish and gaudy. And they are basically by definition, but I'm sure it's much more impressive in person than it is looking at a photo, you know?
We should go.
All right. I would totally love to go. I've been wanting to go to Germany for a while.
Yeah. You know, I mean, we're talking about maybe trying to do some like real European tour dates.
Oh, yeah. We should do a 10-person show in Germany.
Yeah. Oh, I bet we could get 500 people in a room in Germany.
You're crazy.
All right. Well, let's talk about some other stuff. We talked about that artificial cave. That was pretty amazing. He also had a singer's hall, which was supposedly recreated from part of the Wartburg, which was a castle where they had American Idol, essentially. It was called the Singers Krieg, Singers Contest, in 1207.
Yeah, which is right in the wheelhouse of when this fantasy era would have taken place, the High Middle Ages from about 1000 CE to 1300 CE, right?
Yeah, totally.
There's also a winter garden, which essentially is an enclosed balcony that looks out, has an amazing view. But the thing that's really notable about that is that they're window panes with glass measuring 9 feet tall, about 3 meters, the largest, tallest window panes made in the history of humanity up to that point.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Now it's no big deal. But yeah, at the time it was.
And then some of the other technology that he employed, he had hot and cold running water. That was not very common back then. What else?
He had central heat. He had forced air. He had a little electric bell system for his servants.
Ring-a-ding.
And he had telephone lines, even though there was not much, there was no one he could really call. There are very few people he could call, but he did have telephone lines.
Apparently, it would connect to Hohenschwangau, that his childhood castle a mile away.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. He also had flush toilets, too. The thing is it took forever for this to be constructed. When they broke ground, I think in 1869, he estimated it to be about 3 years. And it took them longer than that just to build the gatehouse, which is like the first building of this massive castle complex. And that's where he lived while they were building the rest, the palace itself. But he only lived in the palace for about 6 months before he died. So I think actually, as we'll see, the whole thing went unfinished, as a matter of fact. But as he was doing this, he grew deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. And you might be like, boo, hiss. He used the king's money to build himself a fantasy castle. That's not correct.
No, he did not use public monies. He just went into debt and traded on his family name, securing loans, against that royal family name. He also got a loan from Otto von Bismarck of Prussia, who, helped him out when he could, including vouching for him, as we'll see later. But he just, he was obsessed with these projects. He kept building these projects. He started another one about a year after Neuschwanstein, which, like you said, wasn't even close to being done. And they were like, all right, this is enough. We need to get this guy out of here. And this was all like kind of the quiet talk, around the court. Right. And, it seemed like by all appearances, he was still doing the bureaucratic work of a king. Like I mentioned earlier, he was not so interested in the public sort of warring type of stuff and being a big public face. He liked to hide away, but he wasn't like just laying around in a dream world. Like he would keep up with the paperwork and stuff like that he had to do. But that wasn't enough. They wanted him out. So in March of 1886, Prime Minister Johann von Lutz hired Bernard von Guden, a very prominent psychiatrist who had already been treating his mentally ill brother, Ludwig's mentally ill brother. And instead of, and this guy seemed like a good guy. Like he was against restraints and violence, and he wanted to treat patients with dignity and respect and allow them freedoms and stuff like that. Yeah,
very progressive for the time.
Super progressive. But he did not actually examine the king himself. He talked to people around him, sexual partners that he had and stuff like that, took into account the family diagnoses here and there, and came up with his own diagnosis, right?
He did. And to be fair, von Guden wasn't the only psychiatrist or psychologist who was tasked with preparing this report. But he was the most prominent. And in fact, he became Ludwig's personal doctor, I guess personal psychiatrist, essentially is what it came to. So 3 months after he was tasked with this, they released this report and they diagnosed Ludwig with paranoia, parentheses, madness.
Yeah.
Essentially saying he probably had something like schizophrenia. And then one of the other things about that report is it touched on, but apparently didn't mention explicitly. I hadn't read it, so I'm not quite sure how they put it. But it was definitely in there in not direct terms, the fact that he was gay, a gay king, right?
Right.
And so I'm sure that by itself, like basically a report from a psychiatrist saying this, would have been enough. But the impression I have is it was really the public funds and being indebted to families from other nations, von Bismarck, like that's a big deal, right? And then if the creditors came after him, he's like, I don't have any money. Ultimately, they're going to turn on Bavaria. And I get the impression that that was what really got them the most, right? And what they were trying to protect against. So 3 days after that report comes out, they showed up at his doorstep and said, you're under arrest. Freeze, sucker.
Yeah, they brought was it Pam Grier?
Yeah. No, they didn't say sugar.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that would have been sugar. They had chloroform. They had a straitjacket. Apparently, they didn't have to use the straitjacket. I'm not sure about the chloroform. But they placed him under arrest, sent him to the castle of Berg. Guden was to care for him, basically kind of full-time there. And here's where we get to the question of like whether or not he was genuinely mentally ill or just sort of forced out by being an eccentric gay young king.
Right.
Well, he wasn't super young by this point, I guess. But in 2013, there was a paper in Germany from some mental health researchers who basically said it was an unreliable report that was politically motivated, and they were just trying to get him out of there. He was still governing. He was still sort of doing the paperwork and doing the things he needed to do. He had written, in fact, von Bismarck even vouches for this guy, saying that they had exchanged letters right up until the very end, where he seemed lucid and was in touch with reality. 7 years after that, in 2020, just a few years ago, there was another report from another set of German psychiatric researchers that said, actually, it's probably pretty well-founded. The fact that he was gay may have played a big part for sure, but there's a lot of pretty good evidence here that he had a mental disorder.
Yeah, you can make a pretty good case based on the contemporaneous reports, right? Like apparently at least once he ordered a dinner for 12 people to be set. And then when he arrived in the dining room, it was just him. And yet he still greeted all of the empty seats before sitting down. He would also talk to a bust of Marie Antoinette quite in depth. It wasn't like a passing like, love you or anything like that. Like he would have conversations with her in French. He also, and this is something, he would speak at a fast pace with different ideas, mixing together hallucinations and delusions.
Yeah.
That's a big one, right? What else?
He to pay off his debts at one point, he proposed a bank robbery. Pretty good idea. Sure. It says odd dancing and jumping movements. Who knows? File that under whatever. Maybe just fun guy. He when they threatened his to shut down his construction projects, basically, at one point he threatened suicide. And he was nocturnal. He would be up all night. He would sleep all day. None of these things by themselves, says, aha, schizophrenia. But taken all together, it definitely paints a picture with his family history of someone who may have had something legitimate going on.
I don't know. I think the hallucinations and delusions by themselves could account for it, but
he could have also been taking drugs.
Sure, I guess so. Royal 19th century drugs. Who knows what that is?
That's the good stuff.
But the 2020 paper, essentially, they said he probably could have been diagnosed with schizotypal personality disorder, which is characterized by odd, eccentric behavior and few, if any, close friends. And that definitely describes him. So it's possible, but it's certainly, I mean, we're diagnosing this guy in the same way that Dr. Gooden did, which was based on reports and stuff like that. The people writing these papers never examined them. So it's not clear, and we'll probably never know.
Yeah, I think the autopsy report was sort of a big factor. There was findings on the autopsy that showed he had scars on his frontal lobes from meningitis when he was a baby. So that could have been something.
Sure. I mean, that will have some sort of effect. And like you said, they performed an autopsy, which strongly suggests that he died. And so, spoiler alert, he did die.
He eventually died.
I mean, he was living in the 19th century, so yeah, he was going to die by now anyway. But he died relatively young, at age 41, another leg of the stool that makes him a tragic figure. And he was, remember, they came and got him, Dr. Gooden and some I guess, hired men by the Parliament, came and took him away to Castleberg, one of his father's castles, where he was essentially under house arrest. And then the next day, he turned up dead. He and Dr. Gooden went on a walk around the castle grounds, their second of the day. This one was in the evening, and they never came back. So people went out to look for them, and when they did, they discovered them dead, floating face down in Lake Sternberg on the castle grounds.
Yeah, the story was Ludwig wanted to drown himself, made a break for the water. Dr. Gooden went after him. They tussled in the water, and Dr. Gooden was drowned, and then the king drowned himself after. There's a lot of hinky stuff the way this went down. First, and like there really only seemed to be one hinky thing in this case, really, is the fact that they found them floating. Yeah. Because when you drown, you sink. Your lungs take on water, and 10 seconds, you can be at the bottom of that lake. Maybe a few days or a week later, you might eventually float back up once gases are released and stuff like that. But drowning victims don't float. And there was also no water in his lungs at the autopsy, or no foam at his mouth or nose or anything like that. Like, he didn't drown. It just seems pretty clear.
It certainly doesn't seem that way. So other people say, well, no, he didn't drown. He died from being assassinated. He was shot, as was Dr. Gooden, who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And whoever assassinated Ludwig didn't want to leave any witnesses. And there's a whole fringe belief that this was that Ludwig was assassinated and this was covered up. And there's supposedly the diary of a fisherman who was there at the scene that he left this confession or description of what really happened after he died. Supposedly somebody in the same royal family as Ludwig, or the royal house, had his coat that he wore that night, and it had 2 bullet holes in it, and supposedly she showed it to some other people. All of this stuff, the big problem is it's all second and third hand accounts. And all of the evidence that's referenced, the physical evidence, it's gone, vanished, burned up in a house fire. No one knows where it went, whatever. So it's just going to always essentially remain a fringe theory unless we find a writing from Otto von Bismarck talking about how he had Ludwig assassinated. We're just probably never going to know what happened to him. And there's actually a group called the Gugelmanner. Did I say that right?
It's really more like MENA.
And they're essentially a Bavarian independence society who say not only was Ludwig assassinated, that makes everything that came after that illegitimate.
Yeah, they said it. You hate umlauts. Why do you hate umlauts?
Their reasoning. So that's the thing. There weren't very many people who had good reason to have Ludwig assassinated. He was deposed. His uncle was put into power. And Ludwig had been taken care of, so why kill him? And the Gugelmanner says that von Bismarck had found out that Ludwig was negotiating with France to help liberate Bavaria from this new German empire so that he could, take his rightful place on the throne again. And Bismarck was like, we can't have that, and assassinated him.
So who knows? We'll never know. He died at 41. That's one thing we do know. And he, very much like you've been saying, was a tragic figure. His bestie there, Empress Elizabeth, put some jasmine in his hands in his casket, which is a very sweet thing to do. French poet Verlaine called him the only true king of this century. Mm-hmm. And the irony of all this is that Neuschwanstein, which was had basically not bankrupted him, but put him in dire financial straits and may have led to his ouster, kind of right after he died, they opened it to tourists, and it has made a ton of money since then and continues to.
Yeah, they estimate 130 million people have visited it since they opened it a few weeks after his death. Isn't that nuts?
It's pretty great.
Also, if you go to Castle Berg in Lake Sternberg, there's a cross coming out of the water to mark the spot where his body was found. And he's even more beloved in death than he was in life. Every August 24th and 25th, Fusen, the town nearest the castle, celebrates his birthday. So he's kind of a big deal around there, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Great, great story. I love Ludwig II. I don't know if I got the point across or not, but he was a tragic figure.
Tragic figure.
You got anything else? I'm going to guess no.
I got nothing else.
Okay. That means, everybody, it's time for listener mail.
All right. I'm going to say this is from Parker, and it's about Cher. I'm kind of going to bat for Cher with some of her song themes and album titles. Hey guys, hope people aren't too hard on Cher these days for the title Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, and for the song Half Breed. I was a young child living in apple pie life when those songs were released, and they were my first introduction to how unfair life can be. I felt a lot of empathy for the character singing the songs and swore to myself never to make people feel like that. Cher is awesome, so thanks for that great episode. And you know, that's something that I don't even think we mentioned, that there are certain singers who at times have sung sort of as character, in character. My own beloved Billy Joel wrote songs about, you know, seemingly from the perspective of a Vietnam vet or from a longboat, longshoreman and a fisherman.
Sure.
And Bruce Springsteen. And, you know, there's long been a rich history of sort of writing in character and as a character and singing as a character. So that is how Parker took it, and it seems like it imparted a good lesson.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point, Parker. Thanks for writing in to point that out. If you want to be like Parker and write in to point something out that's very insightful, we love that kind of thing. You can send it off to stuffpodcast@iheartradio.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
Making sense of the news is a full-time job, but it doesn't have to be yours. Not when the Guardian's new podcast, Stateside with Kai and Carter, does it for you. 3 times a week, journalists Kai Wright and Carter Sherman cut right to it, asking what's actually happening and why does it matter. Drawing on the Guardian's reporting, they provide perspectives on everything from sports to fashion and deliver it with clarity and context. Listen to Stateside with Kai and Carter, wherever you get podcasts or watch on YouTube.
Geico presents a 30-second podcast between your podcast. Today's story is shared by one of our listeners. It's called Betrayed by Bill. It was in that moment I caught who was staring back at me in betrayal, or more like what? My insurance bill. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and switched to Geico, saving about $900 in the process, and never to be betrayed again. Now that was bloody riveting.
It feels good when the story ends with savings. It feels good to Geico.
Every parent should know the car ride soundtrack. Are we there yet? How much longer? I'm bored. Well, if you're taking an extensive car ride anywhere and you've downloaded the Lingo Kids app prior to leaving the house, you may experience something strange, right, Chuck?
That's right. You may experience silence from the back seat. Your kid may go an entire car ride without asking once if they were there yet. How about that? And by chance of miracle, they may even ask if you could drive longer.
Yeah, that's the magic in Lingo Kids. Over 4,000 interactive games, songs, and shows, including their favorite Disney characters. It turns the longest drives into the easiest ones, and honestly, you won't understand why you didn't download it sooner.
That's right. Lingo Kids is the #1 entertainment platform for young kids, and it's free to download. Or go plus with the Lingo Kids subscription and unlock even more content your kids won't be able to get enough of. You can save up to 60% on the yearly plan. Just search Lingo Kids in the App Store or Google Play. Lingo Kids, everything kids love.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.